Hello, welcome back to the Yoga Well podcast. I'm Chase Bossart. I was a longtime student of Mr. TKV Deshikachar. On this podcast, we talk all things his teachings, all things Viniyoga. Today, I have a longtime student, friend, colleague, Pam Hardy. Thanks for being on the podcast today, Pam.
Thanks for having me, Chase. It's good to be here.
So, Pam and I get together for chanting many Tuesdays, not every Tuesday, because both of us have had similar cancer journeys. And we thought it would be interesting to come together and talk a little bit about our experience, and particularly how yoga has impacted our experiences within the medical system and with ill health, etc. So thanks for being, agreeing to do this and being open. Thanks, Pam.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chase. It's been quite a journey.
So please tell us as I've known you, you're a river guide, you're a outdoor person extraordinaire, you are extremely capable yogi and physical and Prāṇāyāma and meditation, and you have just been the picture of a healthy life. So
Yeah.
What happened? When?
So what happened? Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's how I thought I was living. And so, boy, was it a surprise when I got a diagnosis of stage 4 lung cancer. Whew.
That was the diagnosis.
That was the diagnosis. Yeah.
That was
stage
that was
4
my
at diagnosis.
I got a blood test, and I didn't know what to make of the blood test, and I talked to the urologist, and he said, well, any numbers like this, in my experience, have always been stage 4 prostate cancer. And the only symptom that I'd had was fatigue. And I was like, well, I'm over 50, supposed to get a PSA, run the numbers, and it comes back. I thought it was an error. So I waited 4 weeks. I got my PSA taken again. It gone up 20% in the 4 weeks. I was like, oh, okay. So hustle. Then you get launched into a whole thing. But I want to start with you. What happened? I mean, what's the first inkling? Give me your process to how you ended up.
So my first inklings actually came during my yoga practice. My first symptoms that really started to get me worried. And it had to do with strange, uninvited thoughts. I thought this was very unusual. I didn't know what was going on. I started having thoughts about death. I was like, I wonder what's going on there. Why is this coming up? At the same time, I started getting these very unusual pains in my back, and particularly in my right iliac crest. And one of the ways that you and I got started working together was I was in this horrible car crash, I had terrible back pain, and yada, yada. And together we worked through it. And I don't have back pain, but boy, do I know a lot about back pain.
Yeah, just for context, we met in 2009. I came to Bend to do a workshop on Yoga Sutras, and you participated in there. And then I had another workshop shortly after that in Montana. I think you came to that. And
actually, before that was Portland. I came up and found you in Portland. Yeah.
Okay. I used to go to Portland quite a lot. Shout out to Jody Carilla, who was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful support for me. Yeah, and we started working together. And I remember that the major thing was back pain.
And back pain is completely not an issue for me anymore. But it took a long time for me to get there. It took a lot of work and a lot of detailed understanding of what was going on in my body, and just very generous attention to what was happening and how I could push and how I needed to not push, and all the various different things. And I'm a little asymmetrical, so I have a little asymmetrical back yoga practice, and all the stuff, right? But anyway, it worked. So when I started getting this back pain, I knew it was weird. It was not standard issue. It was not responding to the kinds of things that normally work in situations like this.
Well, where was your back pain originally from the car accident?
From the car accident, it was lower back, mostly in the center, but it would also radiate down my legs and into my hips and such. And this one was primarily centered around just one side, right iliac crest.
So you're gonna have to say where that is for people who don't know.
Yeah, it's sort of the top of your pelvis. It's that bone that if you feel on your back where the top of your hip bones are, it's that very top little bit, and it was only on the right side. The left side was fine, and it just felt like those muscles were having a really hard time, and the kind of pain I was having there was different, and it was just not responding to any of the things that I normally do. And I'd overcome some serious back pain issues. I'd overcome some substantial scoliosis issues, and I know how to deal with back pain, at least in this body.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
in-depth exploration. Samyama on back pain. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So a couple of really challenging things happened to me right before my diagnosis. One is I had to leave a job that I really loved because of political situation. And the second one was that my mother died. And so about 2 months after my mother passed away, all these symptoms started getting worse and worse and worse. In addition to the back pain, I was also getting all sorts of fatigue and, these little point pains all over. And I went in to see the doc. I called up. I was like, "Oh, this is not good." And I went in to see the doc and explained what was going on, tried to explain my background, why I knew that this was not standard back pain. And after she knew me for about 15 minutes, she concluded that it was, in fact, standard back pain, and that all my symptoms had to do with my mom dying. And she told me to go read the book, Radical Acceptance, which is a good book. It was just not appropriate in this situation.
It's a good book, yes.
It's great for some situations, but not this one. Had I, in fact, done what she said and just lived with the pain, I would have died. But I knew my body well enough to know that doc who thinks she knows what's going on does not, in fact, know what's going on. And to get seen again after that, they already sort of had me in the system as, because she was the third doc I had seen. They already kind of had me in the system now as this person is maybe a hypochondriac or something like that. I finally had to go in, and I literally stood at the front desk and said, "I really need to see a doctor. There's something seriously wrong with me." And, all I could call it was dysregulation. I knew there was something seriously wrong with me. And they were like, "Our next available appointment is like 8 months out." And I was like, "I cannot wait 8 months. I have to see somebody sooner than that." And the woman said, "I'm sorry, I'm just not authorized to give you an appointment sooner." And I said, "Well, then go get authorized." And she sort of opened her eyes really wide and leaned back. And but she did. She got up. She got up and she went into the other room and she talked to somebody, and she came back and she said, "We have an appointment on Monday." And that doctor actually did a blood test, and he was great.
She did. What? So is this a different kind of doctor? Is it a general practitioner, or what?
It was a general practitioner also, just like the docs that I'd seen before. But the difference was, at this time, I was so frustrated. One of my other things I do when I'm not doing yoga is I'm an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And I work in forest policy. And so I know something about what it takes to get a case across to people who are not really interested in listening to you or don't have very much time. And so I did exactly what I would do if I was going to the state legislature for asking for a bill to be passed. And that is, I wrote a one-pager that had all the symptoms, the onset, what exacerbates, what alleviates, all my history, what I'm concerned about, so on and so forth. And I brought multiple copies, and every single person I encountered in my entire meeting, from the receptionist to the intake nurse to the doctor, I handed them a copy of all my symptoms. And I said, "This is what's wrong with me." And
so what were you thinking? How do you come up with that I mean, that's fantastic. I love it.
I was thinking,
I love it.
I'm not getting paid attention to here. And this is a problem. Like, I know something's up. I knew, because I knew enough about what was going on inside of me. I knew how to listen.
Yeah.
And I could feel that what was happening was really different than standard issue tiredness.
Mm-hmm.
It was really different than standard issue back pain. It was not responding in the way it normally should. And I was right.
Yeah. Okay, so you go in, you see this last doctor, you give her the paper, and what happens?
Give her the paper. She sends in for a blood test. To her credit, she had me on the phone before I left the building. She said, "Your blood test has come back strange. Go back to the labs." I did. She said, "Come back to my office." I did. Bunch of scans, yada, yada. The very next week, I was on the operating table to get a biopsy out of my hip. And it came back lung cancer.
Out of your hip?
Yeah. Metastatic lung cancer. It was everywhere in my body. I had, they do this thing called a PET scan, which they put a contrast in your body so that it lights up all the different places where you have cancer. I literally had cancer from the very top of my head all the way down into my knees. It was everywhere. And, but curiously, now here's the interesting part.
Mm-hmm.
It was barely in my lungs. It was barely in my lungs. And there was one spot in my lungs where they said there was like a pea-sized, something was sort of calcified over. And what they think is that that's where the origin spot was. But somehow my lungs had been able to resist it. It didn't continue to metastasize in my lungs. And they said, "This is a really unusual finding for what you've got." And, but once it got out into the rest of my body, it wreaked havoc.
"I'm an unusual patient in that I am expanding my lungs very wide and open multiple times a day."
Exactly. I think all of the very conscious breathing, I think all of the chanting, I think all of the Prāṇāyāma has made an enormous difference in the health of my lungs. And probably has a lot to do with why I have lung cancer, but I can still breathe pretty well.
So your experience was, you're fine, go read Radical Acceptance. And when you pushed it, they said, "Okay, you qualify for hospice."
Yes. Right. Yeah, my first, that's right. My first oncology notes say hospice eligible. It was that bad.
Yeah.
And my previous doc missed it because I look healthy. I walk into the room and I look healthy. You know, I can move, my shoulders work, I know how to walk. You know, I wasn't all pale. Probably has also something to do with yoga. You look healthy when you do a lot of yoga.
Yep.
And she just couldn't believe that something could really be amiss.
So, what's your thought when you have that diagnosis?
Mm.
How did you react?
I was stunned. You know, one of the things I knew was going to be good for me was support, having people around me. So one of the things I did very consciously was on the day that I was getting my biopsy results back, because we knew it was cancer. We just didn't have any idea what kind of cancer before the biopsy. So some kinds of cancer are much worse than others. Pancreatic cancer,
Mm-hmm.
uterine cancer, you know, some of these are pretty much death sentences. Some other kinds of cancers, not so much so. And so I had no idea what I was going to hear at that meeting. And so I invited a whole bunch of friends over to my house. And I said, I'm going to come home with news. I don't know if it's going to be good news or bad news. I had everybody online. We had a giant Zoom call too. And I came home to a tremendous amount of love. And that started things off at exactly the right way. And, you know, one of the things that you talk a lot about is a state of yoga. And the kinds of things that you expose yourself to in the world have a lot to do with whether or not you're in that state of yoga or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that whatever it was, I was going to be taking a big hit. And so I surrounded myself with the things that make that as bearable as possible.
Sweet. It is true. Yoga is a game of linking, and
Yeah.
it's about qualities. So,
Yeah.
things that you link to have qualities, and those qualities accumulate in you. And when those qualities accumulate in you, they influence the way your system functions. So, one of the ways to think about yoga is that it's a game of intentionally engineered experiences that increase the qualities within my system that I know are useful and needed.
I think a word that you've used in the past that I particularly like is curating. I curate my experiences, and I'm very intentional about what kinds of things I expose myself to and what I don't. I try not to listen to too much negative news and things like that. But with the cancer, one of the things I knew right off the bat that I was going to have to do after that beautiful evening where all my friends gathered around me and loved the heck out of me
It's such
is
a beautiful example of yoga. It's such a great example of yoga.
it was a great night. And I set myself up in the most beautiful room in our house. It's this little sunroom. And it was March, and in March, generally, it is cold in there because I live in Bend, Oregon, and it often snows here. But I knew that the sunlight and the trees and the birds and the little squirrels that come around were all healing to my heart. And as my physical health was getting worse and worse to the point where it was very difficult for me to walk, my yoga practice consisted of meditation largely and
Yeah.
pranayama. I knew that environment was going to be the most healing environment in the entire house. And I was like, all right, we're just paying for the heat. It sucks. It's too expensive. And if there's a path forward, it's this direction. So here we go.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, I think that, that's a huge, important part of how yoga is central to choices in a medical situation. Because, it's never cut and dried. It's never, well, you're going to do this, and then you're going to do that, and then you're going to do the other thing. There's 20 different options you could do. And of course, there is standard of care, which is the least, the path of least liability for the doctor. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best path of treatment for you. And I think it really, it's so important to have quiet time where you can really be with yourself and let that quiet voice inside, which knows where to go and what to do, and really let you know.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think that's one of the big differences that yoga practitioners, one of the big advantages that yoga practitioners get is the standard of care is set up for what's going to work the best for the largest number of people.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you said, there's lots of outliers. And, yes, absolutely, they should have a standard of care. But what we get to know is more about what's really going on with this body.
Yeah.
I know my story. I know what it feels like when I have cancer. I know what it feels like when I am pushing things too hard one way or pushing things too hard the other way. And if that requires deviation from the standard of care, I have the confidence, just like I had the confidence to complain when things were bad. I have the confidence to say, this is my body. And I get it that everyone in general, like that's what most people do, but this is what I'm going to do.
Yes. Yeah. That is
And
also very much my experience. It's been, I think, one of the most critical parts of my journey is understanding, like, oh, this direction feels bright and open, and like that direction, I don't know. So even though three doctors are telling me to go down there, it's like, no, I'm actually not going to go down there. I'm going to go over here and do this way.
yeah, I think that's so important. And at the same time, I know that in some circles, there's a huge distrust of Western medicine because there's a sense that, well, I don't know. I think people all have their own ideas. But one of the things I see sometimes in Western medicine is docs who feel like they've got the only answer. And I feel like that's the big mistake. Just because you've got an answer doesn't mean you've got the only answer. And so I think it's really important for me and how I'm addressing my illness is I learn a ton about what Western medicine knows about ALK positive lung cancer. I know all the stuff inside out and backwards. I follow the new research. I do all the things. And I also do my yoga practice, do my pranayama, do my meditation, go out, get, time in nature, go out for walks, go out paddleboarding. I also do all these other things. And I consider that just as much a part of it. Some docs like hearing about that stuff that I do, some not so much so.
Yeah.
All of them think it's great that my scans come back really well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is personalized medicine. So just because you're doing something for you does not mean it is going to translate to the other people. So, we would be hypocritical if we were saying like, well, what I'm doing is what everybody else should be doing, et cetera. It's like, no.
And I think that's the key is like, you got to know what's right for you. Like for some people, the exact right thing might be to spend all your time painting. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my thing, but might be somebody else's.
So on my end, when I got this diagnosis, we had basically just finished adopting our daughter, and I was getting a blood test as part of all the completion things, etc. And there was only one weird number on the test on all the blood that I did, and of course, it's the PSA. That's not exactly true. I also had a little bit of high cholesterol, and the doctor afterwards called me up and said, "You have to go on statins, because if you don't go on statins within 10 years, you may have there's some percentage chance that you're going to have a cardiac event." I think it was like 10%, something like that, within 10 years. I thought, this other house is kind of raging and on fire. Do you want me to like, make sure that the doghouse doesn't have any trees or brush around it? my house is like burning down over here. So, the thing that I did, which I have to thank my friend Kate Holcomb for, is she connected me with a medical advocate. And what a medical advocate does is it helps you to get in front of the doctors that are what happens in the medical system is that people get trained in specific techniques or in specific areas or in specific directions. So when you get in front of a doctor, the question very often is, does what I have work for this person? Rather than what is the best thing for this person. What the medical advocate's job was to listen to me and to listen to all the things that were happening, and then to determine who has tools that I should get in front of. Because if I'm a screw, then I want a screwdriver, and if I'm a Phillips head screwdriver, then I want a Phillips head screwdriver. I don't want a hammer, right? I don't want a crowbar, because you can turn the crowbar around and make it so that it hammers the screw into the wood, but that's not the best tool, right? So I think that what happens for a lot of people in their medical diagnoses is that they go to the doctor, and whatever doctor that they end up with is they end up getting treated in the way that doctor is most familiar, etc. And I think that my fundamental experience of this diagnosis, I wouldn't even call it an illness or a disease, I'll call it a diagnosis, has been abundance. Things have come, support has come out of the woodwork in ways that I'm constantly surprised. I remember, I lived in, at the time I was living in San Francisco, and of course we're right there from UCSF, and there was like all this cutting edge doctors that I was immediately in front of. And yet I felt like I wanted to be treated by this doctor that I had been introduced to through a kind of a circuitous route. They were in Sarasota, Florida, right? And by some miracle of administration, because we had gotten our health insurance through the company, previous, it's kind of a long story, but basically one of the employees had wanted health insurance and kind of, was rather firm about it. And so we figured out how to get health insurance for the company. And then that employee is no longer working for us, but my insurance was through the company. And that meant that it was a nationwide network. So I could get covered by doctors anywhere, not just in California, which was a minor miracle because, as you know, yoga teachers don't make very much money. So it was not going to be possible for me to pull all the stops out and cover whatever, treatments I wanted, etc. I had to follow what my insurance would cover. And yet the universe had conspired to give me lots of options. So then
that's a beautiful story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So then I'm going to move to Florida for 3 months to get treatment. And again, out of nowhere, a friend says to me, and I had basically told almost no one what had happened, that I had this diagnosis. I told my family, etc. So then I am telling this friend, and the friend says, my in-laws own a beach house on Longboat Key. Let me see. So they hosted us for free on a beach in Florida. And we had just picked up our daughter. And instead of living in this apartment in San Francisco and like dealing with all kinds of stuff, etc., blah blah blah, what happened was we went to the beach. And we had 3 months of getting to know our daughter and our family for free because of like this person's, it's actually, again, Kate Holcomb and her family, their generosity. It was like one thing after another like that happened. It brought me into this awareness of, oh, the universe is conscious. Not only is the universe conscious, but it likes me. Everything that comes into existence goes out of existence, and so that's not personal.
It's just the nature of it.
It's just the nature
I know.
of it.
It's like sometimes those moments, it feels like the veil is a little thin, and it's just like how could things have conspired together to make this happen? And abundance, yeah, I felt I had a similar sort of experience with the abundance of my friends just showing up out of the woodwork to help me with everything from, making food, driving me to the doctor's office, organizing all sorts of things. I had flowers and gifts and all these things coming in from all over the place. I was very fortunate that I did not think that I had to visit a doctor on the other side of the country.
Right.
I'm glad that was not on the agenda.
Yes.
And I think that there's something that happens when you have a serious diagnosis like this that is truly extraordinary. I have started. It's like the colors are brighter. The sunrise is just a little more fabulous. The way the squirrels play with each other just like I want to just laugh at the fabulousness of it. Walking
Yeah.
up to and experiencing that intensity of a diagnosis like this is, I don't want to call it a gift, but it comes with gifts too.
It comes with gifts. Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's so key about the yoga experience is being able to experience the intensity of it on the one side, but be able to experience the beauty of it on the other side. And to be able to hold the intensity of facing the fear of death and just walk right up to it. I literally remember one night, so much anxiety, it was early on, shortly after the diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sat up in bed, like things were just like spinning in my head. I sat up in bed and I was like, all right, give it to me. I'm facing all this fear. Give me the worst of you.
Right.
And to feel that experience of looking the fear in the face and not backing away, like that's something that I could have only gotten to, or even only known was actually a good idea through countless experiences of Ishvara Pranidhana, which I think of as, and you can elaborate on this, I'm sure, in far better words, but I really think of as do what you know is right, what needs to be done, and find out what the results are. Don't expect the results, but discover the results. Be curious, feel it, like let the world really in and step into all of the awe that is for real. Because
You
it's
know,
intense. It's hard. There's the uncertainty of it is one of the biggest pieces.
well, on a foundational level, if we look at what yoga is saying on a philosophical level, right? What it is saying is that the material aspect is eternal, and the spirit aspect is eternal. The only part, like materiality doesn't go away; it just continues to change in form, and things arise and are for a while, and then they go back away, then they go back out, etc. The thing that's not permanent is what's arising and falling. And what yoga is saying is the problem is that when we identify with that and we take that as our foundation, that's what it is,
Yeah.
that is who we are, then you get wrong identity, asmita. Then you get like and dislike, right? Raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. You get fear. So
All the kleshas.
everything that's born is going to die. So the only way out is to recognize you've never been born. That's not an intellectual thing. It's an experiential thing.
Yeah.
And when that happens, then, I won't say there's no fear, but fear is connected to it's connected to the material form that has arisen. So if you're not that thing, then it's different. For me, I have never felt this whole time like I'm going to die.
Mm.
I've been concerned, and it's not that I have not had fear. I'm definitely not saying that, but I haven't had. I just have not. This whole time, I haven't felt like, oh, my time is up. I felt like, well, this is a headache. This is unpleasant. This is this is something that's requiring attention. And it's requiring it's affected my energy and my capacity for things. So it's required that I change my activities. Made some adjustments in my my workloads, etc. But I just, on a fundamental level, I haven't ever felt like I'm gonna die. And even in the when I wake at 3 o'clock in the morning, those nights, and it does happen. I'm not worried about dying. What I'm worried about is missing out on my daughter and my wife, and then like I got a good thing going right here. My life is sweet, and I want to continue participating in that, please. Not
That's
like, oh my
exactly right.
God, where am I gonna go? Is it heaven? Is it hell? Oh, please, blah blah blah. No, that's not really the equation. The equation is, wow, there's some fun stuff going on here, and it's some really deep and meaningful stuff, and I will be around for that. ... I hope.
Exactly. I hope. Yeah. I think you're really right on it. Is there's that, in confronting the fear and facing it straight up, there was real fear of death. But now what it's transformed into is more grief at the loss of the love, the community, the land, the music, the art, all the amazing things that we as humans are able to put together. And that it's the loss. It's really more grief than it is fear. I did actually have an experience near the beginning where I think my body had gotten to the point where the message to me was, I can't do it. This thing has got me. And I think I mentioned earlier, I had certain thoughts, unbidden thoughts that came from somewhere way deeper than any kind of, it was not klesha. It was deeper than klesha. And those thoughts were, you're going to die, and it's better to make it sooner than later. And it was very interesting because I know the difference between what it feels like to have klesha and what it feels like to have intellectual thoughts. And this was a different kind of thought altogether. My intellectual brain was never on board. And so I immediately told my husband, I was like, I'm having these weird thoughts. It's that kind of deep knowing and being able to recognize down below what's happening down even below the emotions that changes things. And I wouldn't be surprised if other people listen to this who do yoga and have metastatic cancer. I bet some of them will have also gone into that dark place. I sometimes say I fell in the river Styx, and my friends pulled me out. Said, "Not yet, girl."
Yeah, it's so interesting.
But being able to be there with all of it, with the ebb and flow.
Yeah, I think that is one of the major things that the yoga does, is that it keeps you open, it keeps you unfrozen.
Yeah.
So
Well said. Yes.
things can move. I originally did a lot of grieving because I remember being like doctors and being like, well, I have a 2.5-year-old, so I want to be around for a while here. And, you know, on my own time in practice or whatever, really having a lot of emotions arise and come through. And I think that's so healthy. So we're not, yoga doesn't make us robots. It just changes our relationship to ourselves and to what's happening. There's this wonderful passage in the first chapter of Patanjali's Yogasūtra where he's basically saying, it's 30. He's basically saying, here are 9 things that happen in life, and they're a problem if your mind is out of balance, if your mind is agitated, or if your mind is dull. Then what happens is that some part of you will be stuck, frozen, unable to adapt, and you'll just cycle back through all the old ways that you have approached things. So you'll just make all the same mistakes that you made before, but here in this new thing that's arising. And this Sutra 130, it oftentimes gets read as, here are 9 things that cause the mind to get agitated or take the mind off imbalance. And then it says, one sutra before, that if you have this Ishvara Pranidhana, then these things won't happen. And people take it as like, these things won't happen to you if you're doing the yoga right. And it's like, no. These things happen. But if you're doing the yoga right, then these things won't kick you back into the eddy of your life that you've been swirling around on your way down the drain as you go down the drain, right? These things are going to happen. And if you have a stable system, a balanced system, then you'll have all your responses and you'll have all your perspectives, and out of that there'll be some quiet and you'll know how to navigate. So for me, in my example in that, so my cancer came back in 2023, and I went again to see the doctors, et cetera, and the basic consensus was, well, you had a good life. Here's the standard of care. You take these meds. It will stop working, in a few years. Then we don't really have anything else. And so, have a good couple years. And I'm like, that doesn't sound like a treatment plan to me.
Exactly.
That doesn't sound like a treatment plan. That sounds like, your plan is, your plan is not going to work. So your plan is going to just delay. So it just didn't feel right for me. And again, my medical advocate, wonderful man, appreciate him so much, Dr. John Laird, he Sufi practitioner. He connected me with someone there in University of Southern Florida, and they have a way of utilizing the medicine that you go on and off based on your blood test, etc. That is, it's new enough in his application that they don't have the papers and the research conclusions yet, etc. But it's part of that is that he's got a bunch of people in there who are blowing way past all the lines, and so they're not to the end of their research because not enough people in the research have concluded and died, etc. And so so my oncologist here in Washington actually fired me because I wouldn't follow their protocol, which they know is going to kill me, and they wouldn't work. It's so much easier for me not to have to go to Tampa, Florida, just to, get all my meds and all my checkups and all my stuff here and work with no, I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry. I'm like, but no, but it's so clear to me, like, oh, this is bright and open. Here's the direction, and here's how I'm following it. That, all these other implements and all these things they're just obstacles. They're just stuff that arises, and it's not personal. Like, it's like I don't need to besmirch this other doctor, and I don't need to like make sure everybody knows that this other person and blah blah blah. It's just like, no. For me, here's my direction. Here's what I'm doing, and of course, it's not any guarantee of anything. I just know that for me, this is the direction for me to go, and that is, and there's peace there, and there's confidence, and there's also just me listening and taking the next step. That's no different than anybody, actually. It's just that, there's a death sentence hanging, an official death sentence. Certified death sentence hanging above my head.
Uh-huh. It really matters this time.
Yeah.
But what you say about just knowing where you belong is so important. I mean, just on the most basic level, like you wouldn't want to get to the point of, like literally being on your deathbed and thinking to yourself, I wonder if I should have followed my intuition.
Totally. Yeah.
Because what you're doing now, like this is so much of it, is building that confidence in your own awareness to feel really like I actually did all the things that could be done. And I actually did them based on what I know to the best of my body's and my experience's ability to actually do it. And you can't get there unless you really have that sort of deep sense of like really knowing your own body and really knowing what's really right for you. And when you said it's not personal, Western medicine, just like you said before, it's not, they tell you to do these things that they know are not, only going to work for so long because it's the standard of care.
It's the standard of care. It's the path of least liability. And in our case, all the people die. And when people die, then, the relatives, they have their own reactions. And sometimes that involves, expensive things like lawsuits and blah, blah, blah. So here's my standard of care. Here's what I do, and, et cetera. And so, but that doesn't mean that standard of care is the best care for you. I feel like the whole point of the medical journey is to be awake and to be informed. Like I'm not trying to play doctor. I'm not actually doing all of the biological research around how does prostate cancer develop, and what are the different subtypes, and how do we go, and and let me do the research on all the upcoming drugs, and that's not how. All of that is intellectual engagement, and that's important, but it's not the foundation of my decision making. So like I'm informed, and there's, with AI now, there's lots of interesting things that you can do. Like I'm sure you probably have a similar kind of thing. I have this, it's called curewise.ai. And basically you load up all your things all your reports, all your everything into it, and then it interacts with you as though it's different kinds of doctors, and you can ask it different kinds of questions, and there's really interesting things that come out of that. It boils down to where's the clarity in the step that you're taking. Is it an intellectual one, or is it a knowing one? And the intellectual feeds and provides support, or provides the context for those decisions. But I don't think that these are intellectual decisions. I think they're really knowing decisions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. One of the things I tell people a lot about this borderland is my intuition loves data. And what I mean by that is I go to the docs, I follow the research, I know all the stuff, and there's additional information besides all the stuff.
That's right.
That I have in my own body that no matter what I say to the docs, they're not really going to be able to hear in the same way.
That's right.
And so I'm very clear with my docs, like, I want to learn all I can from you. I want to understand what your recommendations are. I want to understand why they are. I want to understand the research they're based on, all that stuff. And if I make a different decision than the standard of care, I take full responsibility. I know what I'm doing because I have other information.
Yes. I agree 100%. The course of the yogi. And one of the real promise of that from the Yoga Sutras is no stain.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. It's not actually promising that. It's not an outcome promise. It's not like follow your intuition and you get cured and you get to live 20 more years, so you get to see your daughter graduate from high school, or blah blah blah.
Right.
Those aren't the promises. The promise is that you won't carry any of your decisions with you.
Yeah.
You make your decision. This is what I feel. My cancer came back. So, I have people in my life who are like, well, what did the doc say when it came back? It's, or like, maybe you should have gone to a different doctor. It's like, dude, we're not going to play that game, man. We're not going to play that game.
We're not going to play that game.
And me personally, I don't feel the need to play that game. I feel like, no, it was so clear to me. This is what I was to do. And I don't know what the outcome is. I just know what's clear to me. So that's what I'm going to do. And then whatever the outcome is, I'm clean.
Yeah. And I just would offer, your cancer did come back, but let's just note that in order for it to come back, it had to first go away.
True. That is true. Yes.
It is entirely possible that had you not been paying close attention, that it wouldn't have gone away the first time.
That's true. For me, the way that I really think about this is that what is happening in your physical body is a manifestation of identity and qualities across history, right? So,
say more about across history. Across your history personally?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. the references for this are Yogasūtra 3.13. What are the aspects in transformation there?
Mm-hmm.
Dharma, Lakshana, Avastha, which basically are essential nature and experience and timing. So that determines what manifests in a person, or what can a being become. If we look at this Sāṁkhya Kārikā's presentation of what is consciousness evolution into materiality, the first thing that arises is the ability to discern. And then after the ability to discern has arisen in materiality, the very next thing is me, not me, right? It's identity.
Ahankara.
So you got Mahat, Buddhi, then that's the first thing. Then the second thing is Ahankara, which is identity. And then everything else arises out of identity. Your senses, which are 11, the senses of perception plus the senses of action, those are 10, 5 each. And then mind, that's 11. Like all of that, how it functions is all out of the identity. And, on the other hand, you have the Tanmatras and the Panchamahabhutas. You have the physical essence and the elements that arise. So all of that is arising out of ahankara, out of identity.
Mm-hmm.
So this physical body has a manifestation in it currently. It's based on an identity, and that is that identity in connection to its experiences of, i.e., it's all the qualities that have been in it and influencing it over its history. And I firmly believe in the possibility of identity shift. That is what we do in yoga,
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
with the shift in identity, then everything changes. So
I think that's exactly right on. I think it's how you address this. If you experience yourself as somebody who's going to die of this, or if you experience yourself as somebody who's going to learn from this, or if you experience yourself as somebody who's going to, this is going to be hard, but I got this, man.
yeah.
Like how you take that ride
Mm-hmm.
is so different.
Yeah.
Is so different. And I firmly believe has a lot to do with how it rolls out about physical manifestations.
Yeah. Yeah. And those things are not like the thing really to say is those things are not a raw thing. It's a knowing thing.
Good point. It's a knowing thing. It's
and
a deep inner knowing.
If you're raw all the time, like, yeah, I'm gonna live forever, it's gonna be on it, and the inside you have this dread, like, oh crap. The interior one is gonna win out. It's not a, let me put some lipstick on this pig and off I go. No, it's like, just to swing back what I was saying about earlier, my personal journey around all of this of being abundance.
Yeah.
There's been so much personal growth
Yes. Yes.
that has been required. And I'm so grateful for that. It's been wonderful. I'm not saying it has been easy. I'm just saying that, that's a game we play as yogis. And here we are, transforming. And then you get shown some additional places that need transformation. I've been having with a little bit of pressure.
Uh-huh. You haven't looked at this yet.
You haven't looked at this yet. Time to look at this. Don't forget over here because it's pretty foundational.
And just having the experience of enough past transformation that I can welcome transformation.
Right.
That I can say, oh, some of these external identities that are not serving me, I can set that aside. And I can listen to what's really right and what's really next.
Yeah.
And just right there, such a gift.
Yeah. Agreed. It's been so nice to have this conversation with you today, Pam. Thank you for joining me. Where can people find you? What kind of teaching are you doing?
Right now, all I'm doing is teaching the Yoga Sutras with a little group of folks that have specifically asked, and it's been a lot of fun. If people really want to get a hold of me, they could probably find an email. I could give an email address, and that's really the best way to find me.
Let's do it like this. We'll put an email address in the show notes so people want to find you.
That sounds perfect.
And I'm sure there may be a few people who your story has resonated with them. Maybe they'll want to contact you for that. So thank you again for coming. And we'll have to do this again in many years.
Thanks so much, Chase. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and I look forward to sharing this journey with you as we go forwards.
Me too. Good. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.